Welcome back, aspiring cybersecurity professionals, to episode 18 of our comprehensive cybersecurity course. I'm your instructor, and today marks a pivotal shift in our journey. For the past several episodes, we've diligently built a robust foundation, exploring defensive strategies, understanding network protocols, securing operating systems, and grasping the intricacies of various cyber threats. We've learned how to harden our defenses, implement secure configurations, and respond to incidents. But to truly master defense, one must understand the offense. Think of it this way: a brilliant chess player doesn't just know how to protect their king, they know all the strategies and gambits their opponent might employ. Today, we step into the exciting, often misunderstood, and absolutely critical domain of ethical hacking and penetration testing. This new module will equip you with the mindset and methodologies of an attacker, but with a crucial difference: we operate with integrity, permission, and a singular goal: to make systems more secure. In this foundational episode, episode 18, we'll embark on an introductory journey, defining what ethical hacking truly entails, understanding its structured methodology, navigating the essential legal and ethical considerations, exploring professional avenues like bug bounty programs, and most importantly, laying the groundwork for your hands-on practice by discussing how to set up your own secure hacking lab. Get ready to put on your white hat, the game is about to change. Before we dive deep into the how, let's understand the fundamental why. Cybersecurity, at its core, is a constant battle between those who seek to protect and those who seek to exploit. For too long, the industry focused almost exclusively on building taller walls, without fully understanding how adversaries might scale or circumvent them. This approach often led to reactive security measures, patching vulnerabilities after they had been exploited in the wild. But true, proactive security demands a deeper understanding. It requires us to anticipate attacks, to think like a hacker, and to discover weaknesses before malicious actors do. Imagine a doctor who specializes in infectious diseases. They don't just know how to treat illnesses, they deeply understand how viruses and bacteria attack the human body, how they replicate, how they spread. This offensive knowledge is what makes them effective defenders of public health. Similarly, an ethical hacker possesses this critical, offensive mindset. They use the same tools, techniques, and creativity as malicious hackers, but their purpose is entirely benevolent. They simulate real-world attacks under controlled, authorized conditions, providing invaluable insights into an organization's security posture. It's about knowing your enemy so intimately that you can predict their moves, build stronger defenses, and ultimately, safeguard valuable assets from harm. This proactive, offensive-minded approach is what elevates good security to great security. This distinction is not just semantic, it's the very cornerstone of what we're learning and why it's ethical. So, what exactly separates an ethical hacker from a malicious hacker, often known as a black hat? The answer lies in two critical factors: consent and intent. An ethical hacker, or a white hat, operates with explicit, written permission from the owner of the system or network they are testing. Their intent is solely to identify vulnerabilities and weaknesses, report them to the owner, and help improve security. They work within defined scopes and rules of engagement, ensuring no damage is done and privacy is respected. Their actions are transparent, documented, and ultimately beneficial to the target organization. They are the security locksmith hired to test if your locks can be picked before a burglar tries. A malicious hacker, on the other hand, operates without any authorization. Their intent is typically to cause harm, steal data, disrupt services, or gain illicit financial profit. Their actions are illegal, often destructive, and always detrimental to the victim. They exploit vulnerabilities for personal gain or to satisfy malicious intent, with no regard for the consequences faced by the individuals or organizations they target. They are the burglar attempting to break into your home without permission, with the intent to steal. The tools and techniques used by both types of hackers can be identical. The difference is the moral compass, the legal framework, and the ultimate goal. As ethical hackers, we wield powerful knowledge and tools, but we do so with the utmost responsibility, always within legal and ethical boundaries, and always for the greater good of cybersecurity. Without consent and a positive intent, even the act of scanning a public IP address can be interpreted as a precursor to an attack, leading to severe legal repercussions. Just as a doctor follows a systematic approach to diagnose and treat a patient, ethical hackers and penetration testers adhere to a structured methodology. This isn't just a best practice, it's a necessity for ensuring thoroughness, reproducibility, and legality. A haphazard approach can miss critical vulnerabilities or, worse, cause unintended disruption. While different frameworks exist, most penetration testing engagements broadly follow 5 core phases. These phases guide the ethical hacker through a logical progression, from initial information gathering to vulnerability exploitation and, crucially, reporting. Let's briefly outline these 5 critical phases, which we will then delve into in more detail. First, we have reconnaissance, where we gather information about our target. Second, scanning, where we actively probe the target for specific vulnerabilities. Third, gaining access, the phase where we exploit identified weaknesses to breach security. Fourth, maintaining access, where we ensure persistent access to the compromised system. And finally, covering tracks and reporting, the phase where we clean up our presence and, most importantly, document our findings and recommendations. Understanding this systematic approach is fundamental to conducting effective and responsible penetration tests, transforming what might seem like random hacking into a professional, valuable cybersecurity service. The first phase, reconnaissance, also known as information gathering, is arguably the most crucial. It's like a detective investigating a crime scene. You gather every piece of information possible before making your move. The more you know about your target, the higher your chances of success. Reconnaissance can be broadly categorized into 2 types. Passive reconnaissance involves gathering information without directly interacting with the target system. This is done through publicly available sources, without raising any alarms. Think of it as observing from a distance. Examples include open-source intelligence, OSINT searching public records, news articles, social media profiles of employees, company websites, job postings, which might reveal technology stacks, and even satellite imagery. Tools like Maltego can automate some of this. DNS lookups, querying public DNS records to identify domains, subdomains, and associated IP addresses. WHOS lookups, discovering domain registration information, including registrant names, contact details, and sometimes even physical addresses. Google dorking, using advanced search operators to find specific files, directories, or vulnerable web applications exposed on public search engines. Active reconnaissance, conversely, involves direct interaction with the target, which carries a higher risk of detection but yields more precise information. This could include network sweeping, pinging a range of IP addresses to identify live hosts. Port scanning, using tools like MAP to identify open ports and services running on those ports. Banner grabbing, connecting to services on open ports to read their banner, which often reveals the software version, hinting at potential vulnerabilities. The goal of reconnaissance is to build a comprehensive profile of the target, including their network topology, operating systems, applications, employee details, and potential weak points, all of which will inform the next phases of the penetration test. This phase can consume a significant portion of a penetration testing project's time, often 30 to 50%, because thorough preparation is key to efficiency and efficacy in later stages. Once we've gathered broad intelligence through reconnaissance, we move to scanning. This phase is about taking the information gleaned from reconnaissance and using it to actively probe the target's network and systems for specific vulnerabilities. While some might consider active reconnaissance as a type of scanning, here we specifically focus on more direct and detailed interaction. Key activities in the scanning phase include port scanning. This is a fundamental technique, often done with powerful tools like NMAP, Network Mapper. NMAP can discover hosts and services on a computer network by sending packets and analyzing their responses. It helps identify open ports, the services running on them, the operating system of the target, and even version numbers of applications. For example, finding an open port 80, HTTP, might indicate a web server, while port 22, SSH, suggests secure shell access. Vulnerability scanning. Tools like Nessus, OpenVAS, or Qualys are used to automatically identify known vulnerabilities in systems, networks, and applications. These scanners maintain databases of thousands of known vulnerabilities and test for their presence. For instance, a vulnerability scanner might detect that a web server is running an outdated version of Apache with a known exploit, or that a Windows server is missing critical security patches. Network mapping. Beyond just ports, scanning helps in creating a detailed map of the target's network infrastructure, including firewalls, routers, and other network devices. Web application scanning. Specialized scanners like Burp Suite Professional or OWASP Zap are used to identify common web application vulnerabilities such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, XSS, and directory traversal. The output of the scanning phase is a detailed list of potential entry points, exposed services, and identified vulnerabilities, which forms the basis for the next, most critical phase, gaining access. It allows us to prioritize our efforts and focus on the most promising avenues for exploitation. The third phase, gaining access, is where the rubber meets the road. Having identified potential weaknesses during reconnaissance and scanning, the ethical hacker now attempts to exploit these vulnerabilities to gain unauthorized entry into the target system or network. This is where the creativity and technical prowess of the hacker truly come into play, as they must choose the right exploit for the right vulnerability. This phase involves a wide array of techniques, including exploiting vulnerabilities. This could be leveraging a known software flaw, such as a buffer overflow in an application, a misconfiguration in a server, or an SQL injection vulnerability in a web application that allows bypassing authentication or extracting sensitive data from a database. For example, if scanning revealed an outdated web server running Apache 2.2.x, the hacker might search for and employ a publicly available exploit for that specific version. Password attacks, brute force attacks, dictionary attacks, or credential stuffing using leaked password databases can be used to guess or crack weak passwords. For instance, discovering a common default password for a management interface. Social engineering, manipulating individuals into divulging confidential information or performing actions that compromise security. This could involve phishing emails, pretexting, or tailgating to gain physical access. Imagine an attacker calling an IT help desk pretending to be a distraught executive who forgot their password. Client-side attacks, exploiting vulnerabilities in a user's web browser or client application, often through malicious websites or crafted email attachments. Cross-site scripting, XSS, is a classic example, where malicious scripts are injected into trusted websites, potentially stealing user cookies or session tokens. Physical access. In some scenarios, physical access to a target's premises might be part of the scope, allowing for direct manipulation of systems or planting malicious devices. The goal here isn't just to get in, but to demonstrate how an attacker could get in, providing concrete proof of concept that the vulnerability is exploitable and presenting the risk in a tangible way to the organization. This phase requires careful planning and execution to avoid any accidental damage or disruption to the target's operations. Once initial access has been gained, the ethical hacker moves to maintaining access. The objective here is to ensure persistent access to the compromised system, allowing them to return later or escalate privileges, without triggering immediate detection. This simulates a real-world scenario where a malicious actor might want to retain control over a system for an extended period, perhaps to exfiltrate data incrementally or launch further attacks. Techniques used in this phase include privilege escalation. Often, the initial access obtained might be with low-level user privileges. The hacker will then attempt to gain higher levels of access, such as administrator, on Windows, or root, on Linux, privileges. This could involve exploiting kernel vulnerabilities, misconfigured services, or insecure file permissions. The goal is to fully control the system. Installing backdoors and rootkits. A backdoor is a secret method of bypassing normal authentication or encryption in a computer system, a product, or an embedded device, like a router, or a program. Rootkits are stealthy collections of computer software designed to enable access to a computer or an area of its software that is not otherwise allowed, for example, to an unauthorized user, while actively hiding its presence. These tools ensure that even if the original exploit is patched, the hacker can still re-enter the system. Establishing persistent connections. This often involves setting up reverse shells, installing web shells, malicious scripts placed on a web server, or creating new user accounts with elevated privileges that can be accessed later. For instance, creating a hidden administrative user or scheduling a task to periodically connect back to the attacker's server. Hiding presence. While covering tracks is a distinct final phase, maintaining access also involves preliminary steps to avoid immediate detection by intrusion detection systems, IDS, or security information and event management, SIEM, solutions. This might involve blending malicious traffic with legitimate traffic or using encrypted communication channels. The ability to maintain access demonstrates the long-term risk a persistent attacker could pose, highlighting the need for robust monitoring and incident response capabilities, not just initial perimeter defenses. It's about showing that an attacker could live off the land within an organization's network for an extended period without being caught. The final, yet arguably most crucial, phase of ethical hacking is a dual process, covering tracks and reporting. Covering tracks in an ethical hacking context means demonstrating to the client that an attacker could remove evidence of their presence. A malicious hacker would delete logs, clear command history, modify timestamps, and use various anti-forensics techniques to evade detection. An ethical hacker performs these actions to show how an attacker could hide, but importantly, they document all such actions and are prepared to revert any changes made, or provide forensic experts with the necessary information to understand the breach trajectory. The purpose is to highlight potential blind spots in the target's logging and monitoring capabilities. However, for an ethical hacker, the most vital part of this final phase is reporting. This is where the true value of the penetration test is delivered. A comprehensive report includes executive summary, a high-level overview of the findings, their business impact, and key recommendations, designed for management. Technical details, detailed descriptions of each vulnerability found, including CVSS, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, scores, proof-of-concept steps to reproduce the vulnerability, and the specific tools and techniques used. Impact assessment, an explanation of the potential consequences if the vulnerability were exploited by a malicious actor. For example, this SQL injection could lead to full database compromise, exposing all customer data. Recommendations, concrete, actionable advice on how to mitigate each identified vulnerability, including specific configurations, patches, or architectural changes. Methodology used, a description of the phases and techniques employed during the test. The report is a critical deliverable. It transforms raw technical findings into actionable intelligence that helps organizations understand their risks and prioritize remediation efforts. Without a clear, detailed, and actionable report, even the most expertly executed penetration test holds limited value. This phase closes the loop, turning offensive knowledge into tangible defensive improvements. Now, let's address one of the most critical aspects of ethical hacking, the legal and ethical framework. Unlike malicious hackers who operate outside the law, ethical hackers operate strictly within it. The single most important rule to remember is, never, ever perform any hacking activity, even a simple port scan, without explicit, written permission from the asset owner. Unauthorized access to a computer system, network, or data is a crime, punishable by severe penalties, including hefty fines and imprisonment. Laws like the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, CFAA, in the United States, or similar cybercrime laws globally, are designed to protect systems from unauthorized intrusion. This permission is formally established through a Statement of Work, SOW, and Detailed Rules of Engagement, RO. The RO is a vital document that clearly defines scope, what specific IP addresses, domains, applications, and systems are authorized for testing. This prevents scope creep and ensures you don't accidentally test unauthorized assets. Timeline, when the testing will occur, including specific start and end dates and times. Testing types, what kind of tests are allowed, e.g., external, internal, web application, social engineering. Prohibited activities, actions that are strictly forbidden, such as denial of service attacks, data destruction, or accessing specific sensitive data. Communication protocol, who to contact in case of an emergency, system outage, or critical discovery. Data handling, how any discovered sensitive data will be handled, stored, and reported. Breaching the RO can have serious legal consequences for the ethical hacker, even if their intent was benevolent. Therefore, always obtain legal counsel to review contracts and ensure clarity before commencing any engagement. Ethical hacking demands not just technical skill, but also unwavering adherence to legal and ethical principles, making integrity as important as ingenuity. Beyond traditional consulting engagements, ethical hacking has paved the way for a dynamic and increasingly popular professional avenue, bug bounty programs. These programs offer a formalized way for organizations to leverage the global community of ethical hackers. Instead of hiring a single penetration testing firm, companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, and countless others offer financial rewards, bounties, to independent security researchers who responsibly discover and report vulnerabilities in their products and services. How they work: 1. Scope definition. Companies publish specific rules, defining what assets are in scope, e.g., certain websites, mobile apps, APIs, what types of vulnerabilities they're looking for, and what actions are strictly prohibited. 2. Researcher participation. Ethical hackers, often called bug bounty hunters, sift through these programs, actively searching for flaws. 3. Responsible disclosure. When a vulnerability is found, the researcher reports it directly to the company through the program's platform, like HackerOne or BugCrowd. Crucially, they do not disclose it publicly until the company has had a chance to fix it. This is known as responsible disclosure. 4. Verification and reward. The company verifies the vulnerability and, if it's valid and meets their criteria, issues a bounty. Rewards can range from small sums for minor bugs to hundreds of thousands of dollars for critical, high-impact vulnerabilities. Benefits for organizations. Bug bounty programs are incredibly cost-effective, providing continuous security testing from a diverse, global talent pool. Benefits for researchers. They offer a legitimate and often lucrative path for ethical hackers to monetize their skills, build a reputation, and contribute to making the internet safer. Think of the famous discovery of the Heartbleed vulnerability in OpenSSL. While not a direct bug bounty, it highlighted how a single flaw could impact millions. Bug bounty programs aim to find such flaws before they become public disasters. They are a testament to the power of collaborative security and the critical role ethical hackers play in the digital ecosystem. As we transition from theory to practice in upcoming episodes, one of the most fundamental steps you'll need to take is setting up your own secure hacking lab. This is not just recommended, it's absolutely essential. Why? Because you can't learn ethical hacking by simply watching videos or reading books. You need a hands-on environment to experiment, practice, and make mistakes without any legal repercussions or risk of damaging real-world systems. Why a hacking lab is critical: safety. It provides an isolated environment where you can safely perform attacks, exploit vulnerabilities, and test tools without affecting your personal computer or anyone else's network. Legality. All activity within your own isolated lab, where you own and control all components, is entirely legal. This protects you from accidentally violating cybersecurity laws. Experimentation. It allows you to break things and fix them, understand how exploits work at a fundamental level, and gain invaluable practical experience. What you'll need for your lab: 1. Virtualization software. This is the backbone of your lab. Tools like Oracle VirtualBox, free and open source, or VMware Workstation Player, free for personal use, allow you to run multiple operating systems on your host computer simultaneously, each in its own isolated, virtual machine. 2. Attacker operating system. The industry standard for penetration testing is Kali Linux. It's a Debian-based Linux distribution specifically designed for digital forensics and penetration testing, preloaded with hundreds of tools like MAP, Metasploit Framework, Wireshark, and Burp Suite. 3. Vulnerable target systems. You need targets to practice on. This is where specialized vulnerable virtual machines come in handy. Metasploitable 3, a purposely vulnerable Linux VM designed to be exploited with the Metasploit framework. It has numerous exploitable services and web applications. OWASP Broken Web Applications, BWA, project, a collection of vulnerable web applications for practicing web app hacking techniques. Old Windows/Linux VMs. You can install older, unpatched versions of Windows, e.g., Windows 7, XP, or Linux distributions that have known vulnerabilities. 4. Network configuration. You'll configure your virtual machines to operate on an isolated network, e.g., host-only, or internal network mode in VirtualBox, to ensure they cannot interact with your home network or the Internet. This setup will create your personal cybersecurity playground, where you can unleash your inner ethical hacker responsibly. Building on the previous scene, let's discuss some practical considerations for setting up and managing your hacking lab to ensure it's effective and safe. 1. Network isolation is paramount. When setting up your virtual machines, ensure your Kali Linux and vulnerable targets are on an isolated network. In VirtualBox, you typically use a host-only adapter, or an internal network. This prevents your vulnerable systems from being exposed to the Internet or your home network, and stops any attacks you perform within the lab from accidentally spilling out. For example, if you're practicing a denial-of-service attack on Metasploitable, you certainly don't want it affecting your home router. 2. System snapshots. Virtualization software allows you to take snapshots of your virtual machines. This is incredibly useful. Before you start an aggressive attack or make significant changes, take a snapshot. If something goes wrong, or if you simply want to revert your vulnerable target to a clean, pre-attack state, you can restore from the snapshot instantly. This saves you immense time compared to reinstalling an entire operating system. 3. Resource allocation. Hacking tools and multiple virtual machines can be resource-intensive. Ensure your host computer has sufficient RAM, at least 8 GB, preferably 16 GB or more, and CPU cores allocated to your VMs for smooth operation. A minimum of 2 GB RAM for Kali and 1 to 2 GB for each target VM is a good starting point. 4. Practice exercises and CTFs. Once your lab is set up, don't just stare at it. Engage in structured learning. Many online resources offer guided walkthroughs for exploiting Metasploitable. Participate in Capture the Flag, CTF, challenges. These are cybersecurity competitions designed to give hands-on experience in a gamified environment, perfect for honing your skills. Websites like Hack the Box or TryHackMe offer excellent virtual lab environments and challenges, though setting up your own gives you more control and deeper understanding. Remember, consistency is key. Start simple, explore each tool, understand its function, and gradually increase the complexity of your exercises. Your hacking lab will become your most valuable classroom. We've covered a tremendous amount of crucial information in this introductory episode to ethical hacking and penetration testing. Let's quickly recap the key takeaways. First, we firmly established the fundamental difference between ethical hacking and malicious hacking. It all boils down to consent, intent, and legality. As ethical hackers, we operate with explicit permission, a positive intent to improve security, and strict adherence to the law. Second, we dissected the 5 phases of penetration testing methodology: reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, and covering tracks and reporting. Understanding this structured approach is vital for effective and responsible security assessments. Third, we stressed the absolute importance of legal aspects and the scope of engagement. Remember, written permission via a statement of work and detailed rules of engagement are non-negotiable. Without them, you're a criminal, not an ethical hacker. Fourth, we explored bug bounty programs as a modern and effective avenue for ethical hackers to contribute to cybersecurity and earn rewards by responsibly disclosing vulnerabilities to organizations. And finally, we emphasized the necessity of setting up your own hacking lab. This isolated, virtualized environment with tools like Kali Linux and vulnerable target VMs is your safe sandbox for hands-on learning and skill development. This episode has laid the theoretical and foundational groundwork. You now understand the ethos, the methodology, the legal boundaries, and the practical environment required for ethical hacking. This offensive mindset, when applied ethically, is an incredibly powerful tool for bolstering defensive cybersecurity postures. It allows us to proactively identify and mitigate risks before malicious actors can exploit them. And there you have it, episode 18 complete. You've taken your first significant step into the world of ethical hacking. But this is just the beginning. In our next episode, episode 19, we're going to roll up our sleeves and dive deep into the very first phase of penetration testing, reconnaissance. We'll explore powerful open-source intelligence tools and techniques, both passive and active, that allow you to gather invaluable information about your target without even touching their systems. You'll learn how to truly think like a detective to build a comprehensive target profile. So, don't miss it. If you found this episode informative and helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your network, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on episode 19 and the rest of our comprehensive cybersecurity course. Your engagement helps us continue to provide high-quality educational content. Feel free to leave your questions or comments below. I love hearing from you. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode as we begin our hands-on exploration of ethical hacking. Stay curious, stay ethical, and stay secure. Outro music and course branding fades in and plays.